that clock.
Of everything,
I guess we can start.
At 6:30.
Okay, if everyone's ready. This is a regular meeting of the Garden City Planning Commission. It's Thursday, April 10th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And our first order of business, if everyone would stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Would the secretary take the roll call, please?
Chairperson May,
Here.
Commissioner Steenberg,
Here.
Commissioner Walls, Commissioner King,
Here.
Commissioner Williams. Here. Commissioner Bazzi. You have a quorum with 4.
Okay, thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve today's agenda.
Support.
Motion made and supported. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Take the roll call, please.
Commissioner King,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg,
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next we need approval of minutes for the regular meeting of March 13th, 2025.
Make a motion to approve.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Any corrections or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Steenberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams. Aye. Commissioner King,
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item is public comment on non-agenda items. If there's someone here who wishes to speak on an item that's not on our agenda tonight, this is the time where you can come forward and do that. Okay, seeing no one, we will move on to our first business item. This is PPL 25-0009, comma 0010 and 0011. It's a request for a special land use and site plan approval to establish an adult use marijuana grower, processor, and retailer at 32330 Ford Road in the M1 Light Industrial Zoning District. Yeah, and as I believe, even though there are 3 separate businesses at this location, we're treating this as one application. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay. Well then, to start out, if Mr. Ortega, you would
Yes.
begin and get us started?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. As just introduced, tonight we're here to discuss the proposed adult use marijuana facilities located at 30254 Ford Road. So this site is approximately 3.2 acres in area, located on the east side of Hubbard Avenue, north of Ford Road. And it's occupied by a building that's approximately 46,634 square feet in area. It's a one-story industrial building. So the site is zoned M1 Light Industrial, and in 2018, the site received special land use and site plan approval for a medical marijuana grower, processor, and provisioning center, actually under the auspices of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Facility Licensing Act, the MMFLA. My letter erroneously noted the original approvals from back in a long time ago. This most recent approval for this facility was under MMFLA to allow for medical marijuana growing, processing, and a provisioning center. So right tonight, the applicant is proposing to operate this facility and in addition to the medical marijuana facilities on site to also be an adult use marijuana Class B grower, an adult use marijuana processor, and an adult use marijuana retailer. Per the zoning ordinance, adult use marijuana establishments do require special land use review and approval prior to operating in the M1 zoning district. And as just noted by Chairman May, while they have applied for 3 separate applications for the individual uses as required by state law, because they will be receiving, if they're approved, licenses for each individual facility, the adult grower, the adult processor, and the adult retailer. We're going to treat these all as one, because the way the city's ordinances deals with these facilities is to stack them into one location. So while I'll be making my comments throughout the evening on majority of the site as a whole, there are some aspects which deal with one particular use versus another. But in the end, if you were to make any motions this evening, we would ask that you make a motion on each individual proposed use. So going through, as I mentioned, this requires special land use review. We have special land use comments for the entire, that are in general, that apply to all special uses. There are some special land use criteria that apply specifically to adult use marijuana facilities. And then after that, when we get to them, we will have some comments on the site plan itself. When we look at special land uses overall in the city, we look for compatibility with adjacent uses. As noted, this facility is located in the M1 zoning district. It's surrounded on the west, north, and east side by industrial facilities. They are zoned industrial. To the south of the site, it is zoned C3 general commercial, and it is currently occupied by a vacant lot. But it was previously operated as a auto sales dealership. So, the production aspect of this cultivation and processing uses, is similar to adjacent industrial facilities where they're producing products on site. All of the facilities typically have activity that is intended, that is in the interior of the building. This is also proposing to be all activities in the interior of the building. And then while the southern portion of the building will have the retailer, the northern portion of the building will have the production, the cultivation, and the processing. And this is similar to the other uses in the area. The industrial aspects of adjacent to the site are to the northeast and west, whereas to the south, it is commercial, zoned commercial at least, and we're hoping that they'll be used as commercial in the future. The southern portion of the building is what's going to be, is proposed to be utilized for the retailer, so therefore the commercial aspect of it will be directly adjacent to that commercial land use. So we do believe that this facility would be compatible with the adjacent land uses in the area. We also look at compatibility with the master plan. The master plan for this area has a similar land use development pattern proposed of keeping industrial on this site to the east, west, and north, and having commercial to the south. So this proposed configuration is consistent with the master plan. And it's also consistent with the use of the property. As I mentioned, the facility did receive medical marijuana facility growing, processing, and provisioning center status. They have obtained state approval and city licenses to operate the medical marijuana growing, processing, provisioning. To the best of our knowledge, they do undertake medical marijuana growing on the facility. We do believe they also conduct medical marijuana processing, but they do not currently have a provisioning center open on the site. But the fact that they've been operating on the site would tend to indicate that they've been capable of utilizing the facility for this marijuana use, and it has not, to our best of our knowledge, impacted negatively any adjacent uses. They've been able to operate without any impact on those uses. One other aspect for special land uses we consider specifically is public services. So the applicant is proposing for one Class B at this time growing, and that's for a maximum of 500 plants. This would occupy their grow facility, which is approximately 19,000 square feet in the building. And based on our experience, this is actually a modest number of plants, given the overall size of the building. 500 plants in that size facility seems more than the facility seems more than capable of accommodating that number of plants. However, we also note that cultivation of marijuana does tend to utilize a lot of electricity and a lot of water for the cultivation activities. So what the exact needs are for a facility of this size and whether the utility mains are sized appropriately is actually not known. But we'll get to this in a moment in more detail when we talk about the specific requirements for marijuana uses. We do have an aspect that they are supposed to address this aspect of utility use specifically. In general, talking about the site and talking about traffic, the industrial facility actually uses a modest number of employees, kind of like most modern industrial facilities. There would be not a lot of employees are necessary. And when you're looking at the site, here, Hubbard is classified as a major street in the master plan, and the site has 3 access points onto Hubbard, and then Hubbard connects directly to Ford Road, which is the major trunk line in the city, and it's the one road that has the highest traffic volume. So it's designed and it's intended to handle as much traffic volume as the adjacent land uses generate. So, and then we also just reiterate that the retail portion of the building is going to be on the south side of the site and the building, so therefore it's going to be in close proximity to Ford Road. Vehicles visiting the retailer are not going to be traveling the entire distance of Hubbard. In theory, they would just travel that short distance from from Ford to Hubbard. It's approximately 310 feet, 220 feet to get from Ford to that curb cut for the retailer. So that direct relationship between the retailer and that impact on traffic, we don't feel is going to be very significant given the classification of Hubbard and the close proximity to Ford for these retail customers that will be visiting the site. So those are just a summary of the general special land use standards, specifically when it comes to adult use marijuana facilities. The site is in compliance with our proposed stacking. The city has this requirement that a facility can be a grower. To be a grower, if you want to do anything, if you want to be a processor, you must be a grower. And then if you want to be a retailer, you must be both a processor and a grower. The applicant has done this with medical, and they are proposing the same configuration with adult. So they're in compliance with that standard. The site is in compliance with our setback requirements from parks, from residential districts, from schools. And we have a special setback requirement from Ford Road. The site is in compliance with that. And all activities will be done inside the building. So up to this point, they are in complete compliance with all adult use marijuana requirements. We note that the ordinance does require for wastewater, adult use marijuana facilities must be designed and operated so as to minimize the amount of pesticides, fertilizer, nutrients, marijuana itself, and any other potential contaminants. We want to prevent them from being discharged into the public wastewater and or stormwater system. The ordinance does require that the applicant provide a on-site wastewater statement to provide details as to how they are treating any wastewater. To this point, the applicant hasn't yet submitted that, so we would recommend that the applicant must submit the required water and wastewater statement describing the information. Basically, this will give us some details as to how much water capacity they will need for the cultivation aspect and how they will treat any kind of effluent or gray water before it gets them. These facilities, sometimes they can be very eco-friendly, if you will. They have certain aspects of growing, but they all can have a different way to operate under state law. So we would just want to have those details as to how the water and the wastewater, the water use, and then how the wastewater is treated, if any. And then finally, with regards to special land use, we have some specific design requirements for marijuana facilities. The site is in compliance with what we believe is an appropriate site design. The access and circulation plan as proposed, as I discuss on page 5, does, we believe, have a very efficient circulation system. Customer parking in general, there is parking spaces located directly south of the The building has direct access to the retailer's storefront and entrance. And then there are parking spaces on both the east and west side of the building. And we believe the proposed circulation system, it's functioned well so far, and we do believe it's capable of handling the capacity of adult use marijuana retail clients. Two last things with regards to special land use. We do have a requirement that any parking lots for adult use marijuana facilities provide some screening from adjacent public roads. The site, this is a requirement for adult use. It wasn't required for medical marijuana. And so the applicant will have to revise the site plan to provide the required screening of the parking lot along Hubbard to meet that standard. It's a 3-foot tall brick wall that shields the parking lot from the public right-of-way.
Does that also apply to Ford Road?
I would probably say not, only because technically it doesn't have any frontage on Ford Road. It does have a Ford Road address, but it doesn't have any frontage on Ford Road. It's got the parking lot for the old Metropolitan is there, and actually this site is located. We also have a specific requirement to be set back away from Ford Road, and so I don't feel the standard applies to that Ford Road line, just be on the east. Yes.
Can this be complied with dense shrubbery or landscaping?
Technically, it does say parking areas have a 3-foot high brick wall. I can check the ordinance language again to see if there's any provision for modification. If this falls under landscape standards, Planning Commission does have purview to modify that. But if this is, I believe this is a specific requirement under the medical adult use marijuana special land use requirements. So I think it's something that's actually required
Okay.
under that section of the ordinance. So it's not subject to modification.
Is that only required for recreational use marijuana? Not like any other business that would come in there?
We do require them in other locations in the city, most notably in downtown. We do require the brick screening walls. If you notice, there's some around here.
I'm talking about like in the industrial complex where they're at.
Yeah,
So if it was still a industrial building doing machining, would they be required to put in the same brick wall?
no. It's only the adult use marijuana retailer that is required to put in the screening wall. It adds a sense of permanence, and it screens the parking, and it's aesthetically pleasing and that sort of thing.
Is that one of our ordinances? Is it
Yes, that's a city ordinance.
that we implemented?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out why.
I think it was just
So
an
important-
aspect
if it's
to,
so important for lighting to be blocked from adjacent traffic or the road, then why not for every business, not just this one?
well, I think in certain aspects, there's just the idea of trying to have this designed in such a way that's attractive. And I think one other aspect of that, too, is generally speaking, adult use marijuana facilities throughout the state do tend to have a higher quality of design, but that's typically based on the actual owner and operators requiring or their own personal preference. And some of them are required by the local municipalities. I think it's just one thing that the city ended up being put into the ordinance as a means of making sure that this was a high quality and attractive establishment, not just something that was the back door to an industrial place kind of situation. One other aspect of the site design, it finally is, we do have a requirement, safe site design for community policing. Basically, it's the attempt to make sure that the local police department has the opportunity to take a look at the site, provide us any comments, and then also ensure that they're included with the coordination with state police, because the state police does evaluate the security for these facilities. So we would recommend that that the police department have the opportunity to provide comments on this site in terms of the function of it. So in the end, when it comes to this particular site, based on the size and scale of the building, the site design and layout, and the proximity to Ford Road, the site would appear to meet the special use requirements for such an adult use marijuana facility. So if the Planning Commission determines The standards for approval have been met. We advise that any recommendation of approval to the City Council be granted contingent upon the applicant receiving site plan approval, the applicant submitting the required water/wastewater statement, the applicant submitting a revised site plan showing the installation of a 3-foot-high brick wall that shields the parking lot, and a police department review of the facility. Those are our comments on special use. We can stop there and discuss special use, or,
Well, unless you have anyone has a question.
I was wondering about, on the several pages forward, we have questions about the dumpster, photometric plan, sidewalk signage.
That's all on the site plan, though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's a question.
Yes.
And I apologize if I missed it. What is driving the special land use, given that it's already, is it because of the adult use?
yes.
That's,
This is a medical marijuana facility currently under MMFLA, and so all their licenses previously were acquired under that. And the original ordinances of the city, when marijuana became legal in the state, the city, not to go back, well, to go back to the beginning, the city did have an original ordinance attempting to regulate these facilities under the original state law, MMFLA, or excuse me, MMAA. I know, it's a lot of words too.
Yeah.
The city did go through an approval process. Back then, in my opinion, that state law was horrible when it came to granting authority for local municipalities and having these facilities. That's why you saw them all over the place, and there wasn't any consistency. But the city did attempt to have some, and in my opinion, the city's attempt was always to try them as medical, because the idea when it was originally approved by the state was let's try marijuana as a legal substance because it provided medical benefits. The city agreed with that, and they had the original law. And then the state adopted the second statute, the MMFLA, which codified more specific standards for medical marijuana facilities, these type of growing, processing, provisioning. And those, it was much better, it laid out the groundwork, it was much more clear. And then this facility did receive it under MMFLA for medical. And then after that, 2018, the state, through initiated Law 1, passed adult use marijuana or recreational marijuana. And then under the MRTMA, which is what they're trying to do, that they're having specific standards for adult use. So basically, the state sees them as two different things right now, medical marijuana and adult use marijuana or recreational. And this is the process that they have to go through, because the city, we stayed with medical for a long time, but the city, through planning commission and then eventually through city council, did adopt recreational marijuana as a use, provided going through this process. So in order for them to receive state licenses, they first must have received local approval, and this is the process we set up.
if I could do just one follow-up. So functionally, today, as medical use marijuana, to having, presumably there's growing and processing going on today. In the future, I get that there's a retail aspect to it, but functionally to the residents, not much is changing, but there's now a retail entrance.
Basically, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, was there anything else you wanted to add at this time? All right. Is there is the applicant here?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Yes. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Good evening. My name is Craig Aronoff from Aronoff Law. I'm the attorney that represents the applicants. And we're privileged and pleased to finally come back and talk adult use. It's been a long time. My clients have made a massive investment in this building. If you've driven by it on Hubbard, it's beautiful. It's the nicest building in the area over there right now. We're really proud of what they've done. We've been operating as a licensed medical grow and medical process, although we have a licensed store for medical provisioning center. It's business malpractice to run a medical store right now under today's economy in Michigan. So that's remained closed while we've been waiting out this ordinance to come through and to finally be able to request and hopefully receive these licenses. It's been a pleasure working with Mario again. We've worked together in the past on some other projects as well, and I don't think that what we're being asked to do and what we're looking at here is any real consequence or concern. The 3-foot wall would have been built if we had this ordinance passed a slight bit sooner. Kind of ran into the winter, and here we are at the back end, and it's April 10th and snowed, so go figure. But we will be working on that and certainly add it to the site plan and make sure that's to everyone's satisfaction. Our hope is to, get open as soon as we can at the same time, and maybe have this conditioned on allowing us to move forward, but at the same time allow time to lapse for us to get to the warmer weather where this can be done more efficiently and nicer. The sidewalk was another request that was in there too, and same concern. This will all be done at the same time, right along Hubbard where that parking lot is. At least the parking spaces. On the front side of the store is where the old car lot used to be, and there's fences there and a lot of blockage from the street already from Ford Road back. So yeah, it really is, you come in, you'll see that from Hubbard as you pull onto Hubbard and move forward there. But store looks beautiful. It's got some nice green, wood grain on the front doors and stuff. We're really proud of it, and it looks great, and we look forward to having customers come and enjoy it with us. As far as the use in the facility, the 500 plant grow is a small grow. We don't need much more as far as that goes. We're just looking to have it be adult use and allow that to transition. The way the law works for the plant side of it, when you're growing, it's easy to move the medical plants into the adult use market as long as you have an adult use license at the facility. So they're no longer really, while they're separately tracked on the two sides of medical and AU, they can move within the facility between the licenses. So we don't really need more capacity as much as we just need the permit and license to do AU. We've been there this whole time growing, and you haven't noticed us as far as smell and concern or complaints or anything like that, and nothing's gonna change in that respect. So Mr. King, as you were asked about that, nothing's going to be different. The processing is modestly the same as well. With AU, we might do a few more things and a few more activity. It's only 1,000 square feet of this building, so there's already not a lot of space to that. It's more of inventory management. And these facilities, especially on the retail side, can interact with other licensees and purchase products and materials from other places. So we don't really need as much processing as we do need the grow, and then some space for that, and then of course the retail that takes up the front where a lot of the activity will be. From a police perspective, there's cameras all over it. It's probably the safest 3 acres around this area next to the banks and the jewelry stores and whatnot. But as you drive around the building, it's noticeable, camera, camera, camera. We don't miss an inch on this facility, as we're required to, indoor and outdoor, but outdoor as well, so it's a real deterrent for anyone that's looking at it. It's a beautifully built industrial building, cleaned up from what was a horrible site. The remediation cost on this was tremendous. My clients made that massive investment and then built the grow on over that, so they had to clean it up for millions of dollars first, and then spend millions of dollars to have an operating facility. So again, we're super proud of all of what it is, but in the same vein, we're hoping that we can kind of move forward without too much additional cost given what we've already done there. It is a beautiful site. I know the 3-foot is required under the ordinance. I don't know that it makes it any better or safer. Mr. Pazzi, I think you're asking, or is it Williams? Mr. Williams, I'm sorry. It's required, so we'll deal with it, although, we were a little disappointed it was required in the first place. We're not on the main trunk line of Ford, it's Hubbard. All these buildings along Hubbard are, industrial in nature, so this will be the outlier as you drive up that street right now. Notwithstanding, again, we're happy to get it done and move forward. The wastewater plan, one thing we should talk about our grow is we are really high tech. We have basically a system where everything is pulled back in and reused, so the water is basically staying in the building, and we're basically putting a little bit into each pot at a time. As it drains through, it's recollected, brought back in, split apart from the water and the nutrients, and then reused. So we really don't have a water or wastewater impact. We'll provide the statement, but that's what the statement's going to say. Minimal cost as far as per plant. We're not just spraying for the sake of spraying. It's getting just enough water and just enough nutrient to make it a beautiful plant and nothing more. So the science behind it and the thinking behind it is all designed around how to mitigate environmental, changes and use of utilities and things like that that aren't necessary. Use higher end lights that will not pull as much energy as the old lights do. So all of these things are factored in, and there's no expense spared in this building to that regard. So we're really, again, I don't think those impacts will show much. We'll provide what's requested, but a lot of this is, things that we went through in the medical side, and this was built for this purpose. So the AU doesn't change any of that. It just allows us to sell it into a different market now that actually is thriving versus one that is really not thriving. It's something to the tune of $270 million in the AU in total sales for the state against like $5 million in medical. So you can see why there's no store there. There's nobody to buy anything. So I think I covered most of everything there. If there's any other questions you have, I'd be happy to address them. Sure.
Steenberg.
Yeah, remind me, when did you guys open originally?
I believe it's been about 2 years that we've had the licenses there. I think we've renewed them now twice with the state, their annual licenses. So, and it took about 2 years before that to clean it up and build it. So we've had the permit now for quite some time, but it's taken a long time from the remediation of the property to then the build out to then the licensure. So it's been a long process.
And your current hours are what?
For the grow and the process, I think they're like 9 to 5 daily. Is that right? Yeah, 9 to 5 daily. The store is not open, so there are no hours for the store, but it would be within the ordinance, whatever the ordinance requires. The store will probably try to stay open as long as it possibly can.
What does our ordinance currently require on that? Is it 8 p.m., do I recall?
I believe so. I will have to check that, too. Yeah, it is in the application.
Good evening. My name is Mike DeLaura. I am the Chief Corporate Officer of Hussid Dank. We are the proposed retail operator at this site, and since your question was specific to retail, I believe your ordinance is actually fairly unique throughout the state, believe it or not, as to operating hours. If I'm recalling correctly, it is Monday to Thursday, where we are 9 to 9, and then on Friday and Saturday, 9 to 10. And this is the unique part. There are no sales allowed on Sunday. And that is certainly something that I've noticed in my projections. If we take a look at the business model, that actually cost me 52 days out of the whole year of sales, so that puts me almost 2 full months behind my competitors in Westland or otherwise, and this limits my ability to expand, hire workers or otherwise. So certainly not something that I intended to bring up today. I'm glad you brought it up, but I hope that perhaps in the future, when we demonstrate our commitment to the community or otherwise, we're able to perhaps take a look at that again. I know we had a job fair recently last week, and the response was overwhelmingly enthusiastic from people looking for work, and in addition, really excited that we're going to be joining the community and that we're excited to be here as well. So, but if you have any other questions regarding retail, let me know. But Craig, take over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
I'm good.
Okay. Any questions?
Just 2 things. So you had talked about the medical marijuana sales going down, and that's why you want to get into retail. So is there incremental volume, incremental plants, or is it just a shifting from one to the other?
It's a shifting. Right now, there's no inventory. There's no effort to make any medical sales from the retail perspective. There's literally no market for it in the state of Michigan. You would lose money by being open every day, just trying to service the handful of patients you'd be lucky to get if they showed up. With that in mind, it's been closed. The goal would be is to open as a recreational facility, and to the extent that there are patients in the area that are looking for medical product, they would be given the appropriate, I think there's either going to be a discount that they're offered, or the store covers the cost of sales tax or something to that event. In most instances, the way the 2 licenses work, there's a whole separate accounting, a whole separate requirement with the state of Michigan on annual financial statements and such like that. And if we don't have any activity, we don't need to participate in that part of it with the state, because it's just a cost. It just costs a lot of money to get no upside. On the other side, to the recreational sales, we have a lot of hope for the store. As Mike described, he's got a pro forma, and he's got, they're excited to get going here. And we feel like we'd be able to service the community better on the rec side.
And your client is Mr. Rifkin?
Correct.
And so he's a resident of Indiana?
He is.
And just curious, what is his connection to Garden City, or does he do this all over the country, and we just happen to be selected?
They were looking to diversify their investments, and they came to Michigan when the market changed, and they made this investment. This is something they're excited to be a part of. They do have and will be bringing on local partners that are related to Michigan, and will be helping them operate. But, this all has to happen for that waterfall to occur.
Okay.
In further example, we're one of those local partners. Again, this would be our 14th store across the state. We are entirely self-funded, born all here in Detroit, a family-run company, and we are, just trying to slowly be very disciplined. We've been working with the Rifkins now for several years in preparation for this moment, to ultimately try to bring a viable business to the community. When we talk about local, I think that's where we come in, I think, more than anything else. So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The face facing the street and the public will be the House of Dank.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, did you have anything else you wanted to tell us before we open this up to the public?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, well, have a seat, and if we have anything, we'll get back to you.
You got it. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to open this up, open the public hearing up, and allow people to come up one at a time. If you would, since there's quite a few people here, I don't know how many are going to be speaking, limit your comments to about 3 minutes. And so I'll open the public hearing at 7:05, and if anyone's interested in making a comment or they want to say something about the application, they come forward to the podium now.
Is this in regards to the marijuana?
Yes. This is only for the marijuana application. No one's interested in coming up to comment? Okay, we have one gentleman. You can come up and tell us your name and...
My name is Nicholas Schrock. I'm a licensed real estate broker, and I also own a licensed cultivation facility in Hazel Park. I want to know when the official green zone is going to be released.
When what?
When are we going to know what the official green zone is going to be for adult use?
Yes,
If you're referring to a specific location in the city in which adult use marijuana would be located, so we already passed a zoning ordinance and a regulating ordinance. We don't call it a green zone, it's just that adult use marijuana facilities are required this special use process in the M1 zoning district. And then there are specific setback requirements from residentially zoned properties, schools, childcare centers, daycare centers, parks, and Ford Road. So provided a location meets those setback requirements within the M1 district, then someone could apply for an adult use facility. But we do, as noted, we do require our unique level of stacking. We allow growers. If you want to be a processor, you must first be a grower. If you want to be an adult use marijuana retailer, you have to be both a grower and a processor.
Okay. And where can I find the ordinance?
It's online. It's chapter 124 of the general law ordinance, and then it's chapter 154.165 of theirs. And I can give you those. If you don't have anything to write it down, I can tell you, get you those names.
Facilities kind of grandfathered in this ordinance?
What we have is our previous ordinance was allowing for up to 3 medical marijuana facilities. There were 3 sites that were granted approval. They were at some point went through and received their approval. They went through and began each in their own level the building permit process. 2 of those facilities have basically been determined by the building official to indicate that they're no longer in compliance with their building permit because they've not completed the requirements. So right now, at this time, this facility we're discussing tonight is the only licensed medical marijuana facility. So we technically could have 2 others.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward with a comment or question? Okay, do we have any written communications?
We do, yes, I have one. This is from a resident, Paula Barker, states, "I am sending this in regards to the public hearing to be held on April 10th, 2025. As to the first hearing, I am against it as having a marijuana grower, processor, and retailer this close to my home is not something I want for myself nor my grandchildren that I am raising. This is not something I want them to be around, and feel it defeats my teachings of no drug use. You already see underage kids smoking in middle school, so what's to stop them from getting the marijuana? I am also concerned about the possible smell of processing the marijuana going into the air, along with the smell of growing it."
Okay, that's the only one?
That's the only one.
All right, if no one else wishes to come forward, then we'll close the public hearing at 7:10. And we'll move on to Planning Commission discussion and recommendations.
Chairperson,
Yes.
can I just suggest, given that we have a resident who asked about the distance to a residential area, Mr. Ortega, could you just cite the distance and that we did check the ordinance?
Yes. Any facility is required to be 500 feet from a residentially zoned piece of property, and that's measured from the closest point on the piece of property intended to be a marijuana facility to the closest point of a residentially zoned property. And so basically in this area, what you find is the closest residences are on the north side of block. And so typically all of the properties along block that are zoned M1 technically don't meet that setback. So you basically find them along Industrial, along Park Lane, and then in this location on Hubbard.
Thank you.
We have Paula Barker's address.
We do. 31457 Crowder.
Any other discussion on the applications? Well, it appears that the applicant has met most of the regulations, and with the few exceptions that we can, I believe, recommend with those items as being contingent. Unless someone has a problem, I think we should entertain motions to recommend approval. You said you wanted a separate motion for the growing, the processing, and the retail?
I believe that's correct. Is that correct, Ms.
Yes, yeah, if we could start with the way we have it listed, the grow, processing, and then finish with the retail
Okay.
prior to moving on.
Anyone care to make a motion?
I would just like to make a comment. I'm happy to make a motion. I just think generally, obviously, marijuana use is maybe a controversial topic, but I think our job is to look within the ordinances and see if the application and the recommendation is within our ordinances, not to personally weigh in on what you think about marijuana use. So although I appreciate the resident's letter, we're within the ordinance. So I'm happy to make a motion for recommendation to City Council for special land use to establish an adult-use marijuana grower facility at 32330 Ford Road in the M1 Light Industrial Zoning District, with the recommendations noted in the McKenna letter, items 1 through 4.
I'll second.
Motion made and supported. Any discussion on the motion? Take the roll, please.
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Now we need one for provisioning
Before processing.
or processing?
Yes.
Okay. Care to make a,
I'll make a motion on the processing side to approve,
recommend approval,
recommend approval, yes.
and including these contingent?
Including the 4 items as mentioned before on page 5.
Support.
Support. Okay, motion made and supported. Any discussion? Take the roll, please.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Aye.
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams. Chairperson May.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. And then this final would be for retail.
Okay. Need another motion for retail application?
I'll make a motion to suggest to council to approve the special use land for 30254 for retail use.
With those contingencies?
30254. With the contingencies provided in the McKenna report.
Support.
Motion made and supported. Any discussion on the motion? Take the roll, please.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. Next, you have to go before the council to get their approval on the special land use. And you can get together with Mr. Ortega to take care of these items that need to be included in our final application.
Could I just?
Yeah, forgive me,
One
Mr.
item.
Chair. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just noticed, and maybe there's 2 addresses. There is an address on our agenda of 32330, and on the McKenna letter, it's 30254.
I was about to make that same point,
Okay.
yeah. Forgive me, the letter, the cover letter missed that one change, so the address of the site is actually 32330.
Okay.
So there's that.
That's what I was.
And then the second thing, you've made your recommendations for special use approvals. Technically, there's still a site plan approval.
Yes.
That needs to be granted. And I can go over those real quick if you like.
Yes, if you would.
Yeah. So really quick, basically, the site has been designed and constructed in compliance with our Medical Marijuana Facility Act standards, and, you know, the existing building, it's compliance with all our setbacks and dimensions. The existing building's architecture and design, it's actually been renovated. They've added some additional facade elements to the site. They've renovated the southern part of the site, made it much more attractive, added new paint and new materials. And then when it comes to parking, the site actually exceeds parking based on the current configuration of the existing building. And actually, technically, the parking lot could be reconfigured if for some reason they wanted to expand on the grow operation of the building. If you'll note on the site plan that they did submit, the central portion of the building does have an undeveloped, an unutilized portion of the floor at this time. So in theory, they could come back later to do more grow licenses or processing or whichever. In theory, they could do that. So the parking lot does have the configuration, accommodation to do that. But if they were ever to come and make any changes to what's in front of you, you would have to come back to you. So this will be operating and be approving as is on that site plan until such a point in time they submit a revision that goes back to you and then council. And then with regards to landscaping, I put the screening wall under the landscaping issue, but that's, once again, a requirement of the special land use to have that 3-foot screening wall. We threw it in there, so we got past you guys. I mean, it's something that they'd like to see happen, that is a requirement of the ordinance, I should say. And then other things, you know, the normal improvements that we require for a facility, they've actually constructed and it's in compliance. The dumpster enclosure actually is in compliance with our standard. They built one on the east side of the building. The lighting plan, while they haven't submitted one, the lighting plan that was submitted for medical marijuana facility is in compliance with the site plan. It does have all the standards, so while you don't have one as part of this packet, the site was developed and constructed and is in current compliance with our lighting facility plan requirements. And then one other aspect, during a site visit, I noticed there was some part of the sidewalk along Hubbard that was covered with debris. It might have been actually damaged due to installation of I believe, some type of utility underground, because there's the hard surface from the right-of-way into the building was covered with gravel currently. That's usually typical of a upgrade in the utility connection. So we would recommend that the sidewalk condition be addressed. So we would recommend site plan approval contingent upon construction of the screening wall and construction, a note stating that the sidewalk will be evaluated and repaired to provide a uniform level of surface. Yes, sir.
I have a question regarding the screening wall. Can you look into if bushes or some sort of greenery would be acceptable in the M1 district outside of just requiring it for a adult use medical marijuana facility or adult use facility?
So
So if we could break it up and give it some greenery instead of just a 3-foot brick or block wall stretching a couple hundred feet?
Right. So if this, normally the screening walls are under the landscape section of the ordinance, and you would have the ability to allow for modifications. Technically, this standard is under the adult use marijuana standards specific for special use, so that's why it's required of the 3-foot wall. There's nothing to say the applicant can't put some nice shrubs in front of it to break up the mass of that wall. And also, a 3-foot screening wall could also be a modification of that. Could be you have pillars as at corners and at a certain distance, maybe like 20-foot intervals, and then between that you can have a landscape, wrought iron fencing, or it's actually out of aluminum, and then have landscaping in front of that. I can talk to the development director to see if that would meet the intent of the ordinance if we're allowed to do that modification. We're working with the applicant, we can see what's allowed.
Mr. Ortega, could you just cite, what is the subsection where the wall is referenced?
It is in section...
I'm in 154.165.
154.165.I5A.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can look at that and see what the actual verbiage is. So it says, parking area shall have a 3-foot high, as measured from grade, brick walls that shield the parking lot from the public right-of-way. So whether those walls are a consistent distance or whether they're broken up with shrubs and wrought iron fence, I guess that could be open to interpretation by development director.
You said it was IA, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I, then 5, and then A. Yeah, sub. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we already have trees in front of it. Possibly some shrubs would,
Yeah, it could break up the mass of
Break it
it,
up a
because it is a
little bit.
long wall along Hubbard right there.
but it doesn't go the full length of the building.
No, only where the parking is.
So
So it'd be like a
I don't,
15-foot length wall on the south side of the curb cut, and then whatever distance it is on the north side of the curb cut. The parking is a little substantial on the northern portion of the site.
well,
It's on the west side of the wall that they'd be putting, or on the west side of the building.
Correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
just along Hubbard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's where the parking is too, so there's portion of that that western half of the parking lot that is
Yeah, it only
just
goes from
for,
here to here.
circulation. Oh, well, actually, it goes all the way to the end. Never mind.
I don't really see that the wall is a problem. It can be made a little more decorative,
Yep.
but, and it is required in the ordinance.
Yes. It's about a 170-foot-long wall, but
Yeah.
it can be made decorative, and the massing can be broken up.
Okay. Were you done with your,
Yes.
okay. The one thing I did notice was that while you had noted that there was a lack of equipment screening, that equipment screening wasn't added to your,
Yes, that was some original language I had on the site, and after I did the site visit, I noticed that they actually did put their equipment is screened.
there is already.
There is already screening.
Okay.
It's something that is there on site. It's on the west side of the building, behind stockade fence screening, so.
Okay. Did the applicant care to make any comment on the site plan review?
Just same comments as before, we're committed to getting the wall done as required. I like the concept of not having to do it, but certainly it will be done. And then I was going to comment on the equipment is all screened. We did that when we built out the medical stuff, so we should be in compliance as that goes. So we just really appreciate the opportunity to get moving on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just want
Yes,
to
sir.
jump in on this wall real quick, too, because I think you guys are confused as to why it's there, and like I have a general idea. It's tied into your COPTED program, right, of crime prevention through environmental design. So I've seen this in other municipalities as well. Even though it's only a 3-foot brick screening wall, it creates this sort of fiction that the site is more secure. At that point, it's harder for a car to ram it or otherwise. Now, there is no rash of dispensary break-ins across the state, so this is certainly overdoing it a little bit, but I am familiar with this requirement in other cities. So the logical tieback is part of this COPTED plan, which is referenced in the SLU, and that, again, it's crime prevention through environmental design. So by adding that, you're in essence creating a more secure facility. So again, if it wasn't there, we wouldn't build it, you know what I mean? But like, here we are. I'm definitely going to build it, along that parking screen, but I just wanted to kind of hang that kind of logic for you so you know where it's coming from. So again, thank you very much.
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Are there any public comments or questions on the site plan review? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. We need a motion for each,
So for site
this-
plan, it'll cover just the one for the site plan approval overall.
overall, okay, so we don't need separate ones. Okay,
No.
good. Someone care to
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan located at 32330 Ford Road in the M1 Light Industrial Zoning District with the condition of following through on the McKenna recommendations, items 1A through C.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Any comments on the motion? Discussion? Hearing none, would you take a roll?
Commissioner King?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg?
Aye.
Chairperson May?
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
Okay. We're all set then. Thank you for coming in. All right, moving on, our next item. EPL 25-0012, a request for special land use and site plan approval to construct a gas station and convenience store building with a drive-through restaurant at 31406 Ford Road in the C3 General Business Zoning District. Mr. Ortega.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This site is proposed, this use, excuse me, is proposed on a site at the northwest corner of Ford and Merriman. It's comprised currently of 2 adjacent lots at this location. The combined site is 29,125 square feet in area, and it's currently an unimproved vacant grass lot. The site was recently rezoned to our C3 general business. The entire property is now zoned as C3. And the applicant is proposing to construct a gas station convenience store building with a drive-through restaurant window and an associated gas station pump canopy with the bumps underneath. So with regards to the uses, gas stations and drive-through windows for restaurants are permitted in the C3 after receiving special land use approval. And so I will be first going over the special land use requirements. The special land use requirements that apply to all uses, special land use requirements for gas stations, and special land use requirements for drive-through windows. And then separately, we can talk about the site plan issues on this facility. So once again, the first thing we look at is compatibility with the adjacent uses. The majority of this site is adjacent to properties zoned and used as commercial on the east, the south, and then a portion of the western boundary. But of course, because this is at an intersection, that those eastern properties are on the other side of Merriman, and the southern properties on the other side of Ford. So it's only adjacent to one commercial piece of property on the southwest side. So the property to the north is actually across Crowder Avenue, which is zoned R3 multifamily residential. The properties are zoned R3. The immediate lot at that corner on the other side of Crowder is actually a vacant lot. And then there is a lot that is occupied by a single-family structure. It's a single-family structure in the R3 district. Similarly, on the directly west of this site is a property that is zoned R3, but it is occupied by a single-family structure as well. So, based on this proposed building layout on the site plan in front of you, the drive-through window will be directly across from the rear corner of the adjacent residence. As proposed, there's the single-family residence. They are proposing to construct the 6-foot-high masonry screening wall, and then there's a 12 to 13-foot wide drive aisle for the drive-through window, and then the window itself. So whether in this configuration that 6-foot-high wall window would be sufficient to screen the activity and the noise from an associated drive-through window remains to be seen, whether that's sufficient. However, we note one key aspect of the requirements for drive-through, for these special uses, is that the zoning ordinance does require actually a 40-foot minimum setback for structures from any property zoned or used for residential purposes. So the building as proposed is in violation of that 40-foot setback. So, but the building could be revised and basically turned or reduced in size or some revision to comply with that 40-foot setback. And so while in theory that reconfiguration will then provide that buffer, the setback will locate some of that commercial activity further away from the residential. But we do feel that the majority, so in summary about compatibility, the majority of the site is compatible with the adjacent commercial uses on the east, south, and portions of the west. And if the site plan is revised to provide the required 40-foot setback, then a greater amount of associated commercial activities will be further from those residences on the west. But in the city, most common shared boundaries between residential uses and commercial uses is a shared rear line. The residential uses benefit from having their rear yard acting as that buffer, as an additional buffer from the commercial activity on the other side of that rear line and the other side of that screening wall. Given that this site is proposing a shared side yard relationship, the Planning Commission, we suggest you should determine what is appropriate in this particular configuration. Is providing the required 40-foot setback sufficient? is providing additional buffering between the uses required or necessary, or are the proposed special land uses appropriate in this location in compliance with that 40-foot setback? Basically, what this is it's a good question because this is a special land use. The special land use gives Planning Commission purview as to these type of issues with regards to compatibility. It does appear, looking at it, based on my experience, there could be a configuration of the site that complies with the setback, that has the feature of a drive-through window, and that provides an additional buffering to the residents. That's a potential that could happen, but it's a matter of what your opinion is as the Planning Commission as to what level of buffering needs to occur. The site is zoned commercial. It is intended to be developed as commercial, but how does that relationship with the single family exist? And that's the main crux of this issue in front of you tonight in terms of special land use. Looking at our other things that we talk about, generally speaking, compatibility with the master plan, this is compatible with the master plan as proposed, these uses, and that's in speaking to the point, and that's why it was rezoned. In theory, this can be designed in such a way to be used for commercial use and be adjacent to residential, because we do have that relationship throughout the city. It's a matter of whether this side-to-side relationship needs some additional buffering, basically, with regards to that. So we always look at, paragraph C on page 3, the use of adjacent property. Once again, the close proximity of the proposed commercial improvements to the residential use to the north and the northwest, that could impact the continued use of those properties. As it is designed today. The conclusions, so we recommend these conclusions and discussions you have about compatibility would impact your determination of whether having a compatible design will allow those adjacent properties on the north and west to function as residential. Stepping back from the compatibility issue for a second, the impact on traffic. The applicant is proposing one entrance-exit drive on the Ford Road, and then 2 entrance-exit approaches on the Merriman Road right-of-way. Ford Road is MDOT jurisdiction. Merriman Road is Wayne County jurisdiction. As proposed, the Ford Road driveway is 51 feet from the intersection of Ford and Merriman, and it's 23 feet on Merriman one intersection is 51, the other one's 23. So in other words, it's very close. I'm not a traffic engineer, but colloquially speaking, we know that the Ford and Merriman intersection is very heavily traveled and has a lot of turning movements on that site. And MDOT and Wayne County Road Commission, the Road Division, they have specialists that are intended to determine where turning movements will go in, because the property does have the right to be accessed. But that configuration needs to be as safe as possible. We would defer to traffic engineers and specifically MDOT and Wayne County to determine what is that appropriate configuration. But in my experience, generally speaking, what you're probably going to find is that Ford Road right-of-way may be a restricted movements. It might be right in and right out only. And the Merriman Road right-of-way access curb cuts may be reduced or shifted and that sort of thing. And so while it's not necessarily advantageous, another option is technically having some type of access off of Crowder. Once again, it's not advantageous from a residential standpoint, but in theory, that might create safer conditions on Merriman, because then any traffic movement, any traffic accessing Merriman would exit the site, go onto Crowder, and then attempt to get onto Merriman, just like every other traffic currently does by utilizing Crowder. But once again, that's just a planner's opinion. We would need transportation engineers and to take a look at that with regards to that. So that's always been a big issue. And that's honestly, that's one of the reasons why this site is one of the more difficult sites one of the last sites to be redeveloped in the city, because of these conditions. One other aspect we note, as we'll discuss later on in the evening, is whether there's a need for this proposed use. That's one of the standards of criteria for special land use that you have to discuss. Briefly getting into the specific requirements for gas stations, I already noted that there's the 40-foot setback required from residential property. The applicant still needs to provide the details on the canopy, because there is a requirement that the canopy be set back 20 feet from the right-of-way, and it must be, so the canopy is going to have to be shifted in order to meet that minimum setback. Technically, our ingress and egress requirements wants a wider driveway for these gas stations. We want a 31-foot minimum wide driveway, so we'll have to see how that requirement lines up with the requirements of MDOT or Wayne County. That's going to be an issue, possibly, with regards to that. We do have some notes here that they need to make sure that on the site plan, there's a note about no outside storage on the site and no vehicle sales are permitted on the site. And then finally, looking at the drive-through restaurant aspect of the entire site. We also have some minimum requirements for the driveways. As I mentioned, the ingress and egress point must be located no closer than 25 feet from the intersection of Ford and Merriman. So that southern Merriman Road access drives needs to be shifted to the north already, by our standards, up to at least 25 feet. We also have some standards with regards to the control of the sound level. We need details on the menu ordering station, where that's going to be located in relation to the adjacent residences. And then there is a stacking space requirement for the drive-through lane. They need to show 10 spaces from the window around the building in whatever configuration is proposed. So just on the special land use aspect of this, once again, it's a difficult site to design. I'm sure they probably came up with several different alternatives, and they've approached us with this one. But based on at a minimum, the 40-foot setback from the residential property, the site will have to be reconfigured. So in the end, if you, after your deliberations tonight, if you feel there is any type, is a potential to make a motion to recommend any kind of approval for this, I do have a list of 4 different items and 8 different issues that need to be addressed on a revised site plan. Yes, sir.
I have a question too about the access to the dumpster enclosure.
Yeah, so there's additional issues under the site plan. I left those for under the site plan, but the dumpster enclosure is access to that. Access to the proposed loading zone is an issue. So circulation and access is an issue. Just to jump into that for a minute, parking access, the parking configuration on the site seems a little, it's not consistent with what we normally have. For example, they're proposing angled parking spaces on that west side, but typically angled parking spaces are done in combination with a one-way access lane. So when you pull in, you pull out, and then you keep going either northbound or along the way, based on its configuration directly adjacent to the fuel pumps. You might have people wanting to turn southbound, so go contrary to those vehicles exiting the spaces. People exiting the spaces might want to try and keep on doing a circular motion to exit south on the site. And so there's a lot of conflict points that result from that, from cars exiting those spaces and every other car traveling the site. Not to mention that the fueling circulation, they have provided circulation plans, but a lot of those circulation plans show either a position of the fuel truck that's not even in close proximity to where the tanks are, or it shows those fuel trucks with the rear end of the truck hanging on the driveways that are exiting the site. And we've had some issues with this in other sites. The configuration of the circulation is proposed on the site plan, but then I've noticed in practice they aren't done. We're having some truck drivers, and it might be because they're not used to the site yet, but some of these fuel delivery drivers are backing up into Ford Road. So that's something that we can't have on the Ford and Merriman location. Yes, sir.
maybe this is just my personal opinion, but I think the way this is being presented tonight, there's too many inconsistencies and conflicts for me to even consider site plan approval.
I'm kind of,
I think
I think a lot of us are feeling that way, but why don't we wait and let the applicant make his comments, and we'll have a public hearing, and then we can discuss it after that.
And as I mentioned, I'm sure that the applicant has considered different configurations, and because another issue is there's a DT easement straight through the middle of the site. But the applicant is aware of that, and they've positioned things that they felt out of that, because initial site plans that I did see unfortunately had the dumpster enclosure directly underneath the overhead lines, and that's obviously not going to work. So they have been trying to come up with something that works. I believe, but they wanted to have their opportunity to speak, and I also think that you benefit from your experience as of what your preferences would be with regards to this compatibility issue, because it's something that I think is important. And last thing, with regards to all this, I do believe that the number of parking spaces required on site is due to the size of the building. And the amount of the size of that building and the size of the restaurant storefront. If the building was reduced in size, the number of parking spaces on site would be reduced, and then there would be more space for vehicles to circulate safely. So that's another option to consider.
Chamber.
I have a similar concern as yourself, although we want the applicant to be able to speak to us tonight and see what we can do here. But I'm wondering if we wouldn't all be better served by getting input from MDOT and/or Wayne County to see what their thoughts on ingress and egress for the property, because we're not only looking at vehicles going in and out, we're looking at garbage trucks, which are fairly significant size and have a reduced turning radius than a passenger car or truck would have, and also in conjunction with fuel delivery. Those are generally pretty significant vehicles, and the constraints of the site, although something can be figured out here, a lot of little things here. But I wonder if we wouldn't be better served by getting MDOT's 10 cents on this.
To let you know, I have mentioned that to the applicant, and I've mentioned that to other applicants, because MDOT and Wayne County are an issue. And I have noticed lately that MDOT and Wayne County have been more forthright lately in providing comments on plans informally. So that way the applicant doesn't have to go through the review and approval process officially, putting the cart before the horse, as you will, but they've had the opportunity to receive informal comments from both MDOT and Wayne County.
Because I know the cost of drawings and time and everything is very significant. And we can sit here and debate all the ins and outs of getting garbage trucks in and fuel trucks and people buying food and fuel in and out of this site. But if we do all that and then MDOT throws it up in the air and says, you can't possibly put a driveway this close to whatever, then I'm wondering if it wouldn't be for naught. So.
Okay, well, let's,
Okay.
did you have anything else, Mr. Ortega?
No.
Okay, is the applicant present? Care to come up and make? Good evening.
Design. I'm representing Dr. Fadi Nasruddin for FlexMart and his associates. It seems like there's a lot of concerns. I didn't know. This is a surprise to me because we went back and forth before we got to this point for about 3 months. Yeah. I'm very surprised. As you can see, the site can't be configured in so many different ways. The site toward the front, fronting Ford Road, I mean, there's no possibility that we're going to put any building there. And the pumps are not allowed to be toward the back on the side street toward the back. I forgot the name of the side street for a second.
Crowder.
Crowder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always forget that. So the only possibility for me to design this building was toward the back. And the intention for the owner designing many of these in many cities, and one is already in your city on Ford Road and Henry Ruff, is having a gas station, and he can't have, he needs minimum of 3,000 square feet for the store in order to fit everything that he needs. I mean, he already experienced this many times for so many years. And then as far as the carry-out restaurant, which if he's gonna put Eureka Deli again, or he's gonna choose something else, I'm not sure yet, but most likely Eureka Deli, he needs a minimum of 1,500 square feet. So in that sense, we had to fit the building according to that square footage. And then alongside that, I mean, when you go to other buildings and other drive-throughs and also big shopping centers away from residential, you'll see that they don't have more than, 11, 12 feet of drive-through. We were providing a setback, I think it was toward Crows. I didn't have a copy of the big plans, I just had the copy of the small plans, but we have something like, I think it's almost 20 feet, I mean, 16 feet or something like that.
To the north?
That's 16 feet in the back, then the landscape and another 5
Right.
feet.
This is 13 feet on your plan.
Oh, 13 feet?
Yeah.
13 feet, and then there's the landscape of like 5 feet. And then 13 feet on the west side. I mean, it's a little more than the 12 feet usually that I put, just 1 more foot more. There might be a couple inches extra there. I mean, where the site is more wide toward the back is the more logical place for me to put it. I can't put it anywhere else if he's going, if he's going to be allowed to meet his expectations, the owner's expectations. If not, then he's going to shrink that building considerably, and he's not going to be able to even have a decent store in order to sell a certain amount of items to survive on these days. When you have a when you have a gas station and things, you have to sell many things in order to really make it over there. Not just gas, but with all the other things, you take a little bit from all items, then that's how you have a prosperous business. We are providing, I could say, a 6-foot-high buffer screen wall on the west side for that portion of the residential. The menus are going to be on the opposite side, where we chamfered the building in order, when they enter the drive-through, the one-way, coming off of Merriman, and then circling around. We chamfered the building in order to provide a menu in that area. The engineer didn't show it, but that's where that menu will be. We're allowing, I know I didn't show, me and the engineer didn't show the parking, the car stacking, but I did lay it out right before I came to this meeting because I didn't get this review until this morning, to tell you the truth. I think you emailed it yesterday to the associates, so I didn't have much time to really revise certain things so I can come and prove those, what I thought was minor issues, but I know there's some major issues that you're concerned of, and you just also mentioned the concern of in a more concerning way, but I don't know, I'm gonna try to prove to you that, it shouldn't be that concerning if you compare this layout to a lot of other gas stations that have a site much, smaller than this site. So, when we mentioned that we were going to put a screen wall, and we know that's required anyways for, adjacent to a residential, we thought that we were complying with being in, the building being close, with the drive-through and everything wasn't really a concern. We didn't see that in your previous comments in that sense, and we appreciate all your comments before we even got to this point. Don't get me wrong, Mario. So we didn't know. This is a surprise to us right now. We are buffering the site with landscaping all the way around the site, so that's a plus. We are providing a 6-foot-high screen wall on the west side, buffering the portion of residential that's in that area. We can hire it to 8 foot. There's maybe a couple cities that require 8 foot in other cities, if that would help. But that wall, not the vinyl fence wall that some cities they allow, but the block wall or the brick wall that could match the building, that looks nice, and it really does buffer a lot of that noise or any of that sight that would be coming from our side, from the commercial aspect of it. So I thought that would be sufficient enough. The menu being on the opposite of the side of the building toward Merriman, I thought that would help. As far as, we always keep in mind not to do most of the activities toward the residential. And the rest of the sites that, besides that portion of the residential, are surrounded by mostly commercial. So in that aspect, we were thinking that, because we were limited on where we can put that building, but we thought that this would be passed a lot easier than expected, from everything that Mario just said regarding some of the other issues that I want to speak about too also. As far as the dumpster, I did have the dumpster wrapped around in another location where there was overhead wiring. And I had to move it because, the dumpster truck is going to have a hard time picking up the garbage can and stuff like that. We did meet DTE on site. We do have planning and discussion, and we do have a plan for that. So they're able to move that pole from the middle of the site, and we can put it really close to the landscape island near the approach north on the northern approach coming off of Merriman. There's a dot there, and there's a note that shows where that post will be, but it'll be in a landscape island in that sense. So that will be buffered in that sense. You won't be able to tell where that electric post will be. Just like on other sites, it's always on the site, but it's buffered with landscaping and stuff like that. So it'll be free of any posts or anything like that. But the lines, the electric lines, are still going to remain. But he's able to lift them up. I forgot that he was going to look into how much he can lift them up in order to help, but it still won't help enough for the garbage truck mentioned from DTE planner. But nonetheless, I moved the location of the dumpster where we're providing angle parking, where that one way that you've mentioned, and then everyone's going to get confused. They're going to still use it as two-way and stuff like that. I have a solution for that, but that's something that maybe the owner can sacrifice, but I'm going to get to that after a couple other things. So when we had angle parking, that's why, and the dumpster truck when it comes, when the trucks comes and pick up the dumpsters and stuff like that, they want to come in, and they want to come in on a certain angle, 30 degree, 45 degree, whatever's comfortable for them. So I thought they would come in from Ford Road. They can come in from Merriman and circle around, but it's easy for them to angle in, pick up the dumpster, and back up, and then keep going forward toward the building, and then circle around on Merriman and leave. I mean, they're gonna, if they start that routine, they're gonna keep doing that same routine all the time. And if it's comfortable for them, it's comfortable. I mean, I don't know how else or where else to put that dumpster. I don't want to put it in front of the building. I can't put it toward the fronting Ford Road or Merriman. It's hard to put toward the residential side where Kraus is. And it was hard for me to put in that corner that where the west, the west side, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but where there's this little corner when you come out of the drive-through, in front of that, where I created more parking spaces because we needed more parking spaces, and that's where I put the loading, unloading in that area. I tucked it in there. I like that to be next to the dumpster, but I was trying to create more space for us to have more parking spaces. We can relocate that next to the dumpster and create one more parking spot in that corner, along with eliminated one more barrier-free parking space in front of the building. That'll give us 2 more parking spots because we're required only 1 out of 25. So that would help. So before I give you that solution that I was telling you about, where the angled parking will turn into straight parking, so we can have two-way, which I had a sketch at one time. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but, you know, working between me and my engineer sometimes, you know, he's a little bit stubborn on how he wants things done too. But I went along with that. But what the dilemma is, and I kind of shared that with the owner, and that's really the backlash. And I don't know if they're gonna like me saying this, but they have double pumps. We can have single pumps 4 instead of 8, and that will free up some more space in order to go back to that straight parking on the west side. And that will give me enough parking, the circulation for the two-way, without restricting anybody on a one-way. So that's a big suggestion right there, and it's an easy fix, and I had it like that before, but because he insisted, the owner really insisted on it, this is the why I gave him what he wanted first and see what we can do, what your comments will be, I guess. So that was really the biggest thing. As far as the approaches, you know, every gas station owner would like to see always the most approaches, so the vehicles can come right into their place. If they miss one approach, they're going to come in from the second. This is the sense that they're always thinking, but it's not always. They can always circle around Ford Road from Merriman and go up the next approach. That's how I kind of answer their question in that sense. But nonetheless, I have a different view about the traffic, you know, when it comes to, you can probably, you know, correct me on it and stuff like that and give me insight, but, and I said it recently to another city, you know, you guys are always concerned about these approaches, and I'm only advocating because of the owners that want it all the time. And we can still move that up another 2 feet in order to comply with the city ordinance, even though contingent upon Wayne County or MDOT, you know, if you give us a chance, you never know, we might get approved, you know, but if we don't, we're gonna just have to close it. But in that essence, you know, when you have more approaches, I thought, you know, it doesn't create more of a traffic jam, like traffic.
Stacking? The stacking?
Yeah, stacking and stuff. Well, you have that stacking problem. I know you're going to answer me on that when you turn out.
Right, yeah.
But most people are logical to use that second approach if they really want to turn back into that part, or you can restrict it to just a right in from Merriman into there, like you said. We can probably restrict that. But yeah, this is what the owners really want, is any way of entrance for them to come back into the entrance if they missed that other entrance. So when you take cars off the road, that would help, you know, lessen the congestion on the road. That's the only logic that I had, you know. But is it really right? I'm not sure. Nobody really answered me when I brought it up at another city. He looked at me like, but he didn't really give me an answer. But he did say something about stacking. I think maybe he mentioned stacking, you know, in that sense. So that's one concern. Now, as far as the fuel, when they want to, you know, provide fuel for the tanks, I thought it would be easy for that, the fuel tank to come off of Merriman and stop at that corner and then unload their gas, and then they can just leave from Ford Road, or the opposite, come in from Ford Road and then leave from Merriman. So that's why we left the tanks way in the south east corner of the site. And I thought that was an easy area away from all the traffic that's happening, the circulation that's happening with the customers. Because you see some other gas stations, you know, they kind of clutter that whole site sometimes right in front of the building, or in a sense where a lot of the vehicles can't even come into the site because the sites are maybe too small. So, and you have to understand that those fuel trucks only come in for like 20 minutes, I think. I mean, that's how fast, you don't probably realize it, but if you just sit and wait and time them, it's like 20 minutes, they unload and they go, hey, we got some people that are really more logical. Does it take longer than that?
It takes 45 minutes.
45 minutes, I mean, okay. That one, it was a question mark there
That's
too.
magic.
But, I mean, it's a large site, but it's hard to configure things a lot different than what we have. And if we lose 40 feet, like I said, from the residential, I'm only going to be left with maybe 2,000 square foot building. And the guy's not going to be able to ever put an addition or anything else, and I don't think he'll go along with the project. That's my opinion. I don't know. I think I probably answered all the concerns and about DTE and MDOT and Wayne County. We worked with them before. The only thing, we want it contingent, but the only thing that we possibly knew in the back of our mind, but we wanted to give it a chance, is that approach, which is near that intersection, if they're going to approve it or not. And if they don't, we can close that. The owner can live with that. But other than that, we don't foresee any other problems with MDOT and Wayne County. With that, maybe with the questions, if I missed anything, then I can answer any questions that you have.
Okay, well, if we have any, we'll come back to you later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sue, do you want to say anything? Okay.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at 8:05. If anyone wishes to come forward and comment, one at a time.
Thank you. I'm not very good at public speaking. I hope I can get my point across.
Take your time.
So I'm speaking actually as an employee of gas stations for several years and also as a resident of Garden City. So we know that Ford Road is a mile road. It's very busy. People come off of Ann Arbor Trail to get to Ford Road. They come from Telegraph. So actually what I'm trying to say is, aside from the city codes and, where the entrance is, where the, this or that or whatever, if we think of it more on a level of safety because of the traffic, the more I listened, the more things that came to my mind that I thought about. Being an employee of a gas station and also as a resident, I live at the corner of Merriman and Ford Road. So even when they put the checkers in with their drive-through, I saw the traffic change just with that coming there. So I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Ford Road in Middle Belt is named one of the most dangerous intersections in Garden City. And with the traffic, and not only with the development that's coming, and I understand that development is a good thing. I'm not opposed to people owning businesses, and I'm not opposed to it generating money for our city, but we have to think of safety again, and because if the development is trickling down to Merriman and Ford Road, which is already a busy intersection, and also I take public transportation. That's how I get back and forth to work. So I know, like the gentleman was saying, and you guys were also saying with on the northwest corner is a bus stop, on the southeast corner is another bus stop, and the buses come every hour. And not only that, Ford Road being a mile road is a mile road also for our police department, our fire department, our EMS. I live over there, I hear it every single day. It's not just once every 3 hours, it's once an hour an ambulance or a fire truck or a police officer is using that road. So even 20 minutes, or it's not 20 minutes, it's actually more like 45 minutes, for a tanker to fill up to pull in and back out. Just them pulling in to a gas station and out of a gas station takes time. That, I just feel like that corner, our city would be better served with something else on that corner. I just feel like it's not a very good match. That corner is too busy of an intersection for that type of business. You know what I mean? Any way you put it, and it sounds like it already has a lot of things not going for it already to begin with. So it kind of sounds like it's a disaster waiting to become a bigger disaster, you know? And being a resident also, like, someone might think a garbage truck coming and picking up garbage is just the garbage truck coming and picking up garbage, and maybe they have to watch for the DTE wires. That's not it. I live over there. There's an alley by where I live. When the garbage trucks come, they don't always come at the same time. They don't always take the same route. They're so loud, it sounds like the neighborhood is blowing up. It's bang, 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 bang. And that poor person that lives over there, like you said,
15
it was
seconds.
rezoned.
Your time's about up, so
It's just not a good match, I don't think. I just want you to take that into consideration.
thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Next, please. Identify yourself, please.
Timothy Buckman. I agree with her. The way that lot is set up and the way the traffic flows around Merriman and Ford is already dangerous enough. If you're trying to get, you know, as the gentleman said, you're gonna have a fuel tanker coming in and a garbage truck. Well, what about the food deliveries, the drink deliveries, the people trying to turn the wrong way, coming in or going out of the store? If it's right in, right out, people aren't gonna follow that. It's a bad thing. And then how many gas stations does the city need? You know, just on Ford Road from Inkster to Benoit, I can count 5 off the top of my head. I don't see why we need more gas stations. Then we got the chance of more pollution, tanks leaking. You know, I don't think it's a good fit.
Okay, thank
Not
you.
at all.
Next.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Steve Hamadi. I'm well known to the architect here. I've been in business in Garden City since 1991. I've owned a gas station, and I have a chain of gas stations, actually. I strongly oppose this project for many, many reasons that I sent a letter to Mr. Ortega. He can share with you. I tried sending you. Number one, there's 5 gas stations within a mile radius. The owner, Mr. Nasruddin, who is on the DDA board, understands. He has one. He just built it. It's a nightmare. If you notice, there's no cars can't stack. 2 cars can't be behind each other. That's the same thing going to happen here. MDOT will never approve this on Ford Road because it's going to be a nightmare of safety. There's no deceleration lane for vehicles to turn in. Vendors, when they pull in, how are they going to pull? They pull in constantly. Time bombs, which is the fuel truck. For one, when I built my gas stations and when I bought my gas stations, they were designed by oil companies, Sun Oil Company, BP. So they put a lot of thought, Mobil Oil, they put a lot of thought of ingress, egress, where the truck is going to be, how long it's going to park, how fast it's going to download into that thing. This site is a huge hardship for neighbors, for traffic, for policing, for safety, for environmental, not to mention the fumes that gas stations put out when in close proximity to neighbors in the summertime with their vents that go on stacking. So I didn't have the opportunity to take a look at this. I just learned about this today. Otherwise, I would have had many, many people coming in here to oppose this. There's no need for a gas station. The owner has one down half a mile from here with an eatery in it. You guys were gracious enough to give him that huge building with C-store and not enough parking for it. But that's fine. Look at the one on Ford Road in Inkster, the Shell. That's a nightmare. Look how they go in and go. Look at the truck, how it goes in. The customers, you can't even stack 2 cars. The industry is supposed to at least stack 2 cars as a dive-in pumps. He knows that. Mr. Ortega knows that. So if there's anything I can say as a local businessman and other business owners in the area, we need to have our voices with the residents heard regarding this, because there's no need for a gas station. The owner, I know for a fact from the realtor, had other venues who were interested in putting a much low impact use for that, for retail, like a coffee shop. Anything, if you put a car wash in there, it'll create a nightmare as well. It's non-conforming site. Mr. Ortega knows the setbacks that he's just mentioned. And you can't compromise safety. You can't compromise the neighborhood for an owner who wants to gain. And I really appreciate hearing my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Anyone else wish to comment?
How you doing? My name is Sean Iso. I'm owner of a gas station. Next to that gas station, they want to build. It's really not about business or anything, but it's about the traffic, and then make more dangerous stuff happening. Since I've been 7 years at Garden City, and Ford Road on Vinoy, there's a Shell gas station. We have over 170 accidents a year. So how much more accidents we gonna have if they gonna build that gas station, and then we're gonna get more traffic. And as he was saying, the trucks, it's not only the gas trucks. If you count it and look at it a week, there's almost 7-8 trucks that comes from different companies to deliver stuff, and they're gonna take much time to back up. And like as she was saying about the garbage, that's really makes bad noise for the neighbor, and it's not a good idea to put a gas station in there. It's a really bad idea, and we're talking more for safe. We're not talking about the business. He's gonna hurt my business, of course, but we're talking more for safe, for people to be safe and all that. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to come forward and make a comment? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Max. I've been a gas station employee for about 6 years, and I can count off the top of my head about 10 to 15 delivery trucks we get throughout the various stations that I've worked at. And this is constant throughout the week. Throughout the week, you have about 2 to 3 delivery trucks a day, and these are long semi-trucks, longer than a gas delivery semi-truck. You know, and the amount of traffic it causes in the station when one of the entrances are blocked off from these delivery trucks, it's chaos. I don't think it's necessary for another gas station. There's about 20 in this 3-4 block radius. I can count 3 this way, 5 this way. It's just unnecessary for this amount of gas stations in the area. It's not beneficial to the residents. It's actually harmful for the residents with all the fumes and the traffic it brings. It's a safety concern. You know, that there's many intersections that all the traffic coming in and out. Today I was at the gas station on Warren Road in Inkster, and a car coming out hit a car in the turning lane. You know, it's just unnecessary. That's gonna cause a lot more accidents than that one today. So I just think that it's unnecessary. I don't think that it's gonna provide any benefit to the community, to the residents, and it's definitely gonna be a very big safety concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to come forward and speak?
Do we have a chance to just answer the?
Pardon me?
Can we come back and answer any of the concerns that was brought up?
Yeah, you can step up and take a couple of minutes.
So to address some of their concerns, of course, all the concerns are always important for me as an architect to answer, and what I think is going on, and my experience is when I go to gas stations, I haven't experienced that much congestions in gas stations, to tell you the truth. I build a lot of gas stations, and when I'm there building additions, actually, not new construction, I see how many deliveries come in there and stuff. While I'm building that addition, I don't see the commotion that everybody's exaggerating. Not at all. I mean, the trucks that come, the Dorito trucks or the Pepsi trucks and stuff, Pepsi trucks may be a little bit longer than Dorito trucks or some other chips trucks or whatever products that they bring in, but they're all box trucks, okay? And they all kind of come in right after each other. There might be two that came at the same time. It might be congestion for a little bit, but it's not that long. Their deliveries are quick. That's my experience. I know they're experienced in the business and they have their vendors that come in and stuff like that. I experienced it, right on while I was doing construction with a lot of other vehicles of my people in there. And we didn't have this congestion like they're talking about. And this site is a lot larger than other sites that I've seen. I mean, double the size. So I don't see that all that congestion that everybody's exaggerating. That's number one. Number two, we are zoned C3. We are allowed to put a gas station there. So I know it's special use. I know we have to get permission. But at the end of the day, if he does end up putting a 1,000 square foot building, and if he wants to do it, he's allowed to do it, as long as we comply with some of the concerns that have to do with code, not the concerns that other people think that there's going to be so much traffic in that intersection. There's a lot of intersections that have a lot of traffic. I mean, that's why it's good for business. But if they don't want to see it because of other reasons, that to me, they're not really real reasons for them to object. I don't see why they're objecting that much. We are on a commercial side. The pumps and the islands are where he mentioned that there's going to be gas fumes and stuff. Gas stations don't give that smell, right? Or, the high technology right now and stuff like that, where the tanks are underground, are all inspected by the state. If anything's smelling to that point, believe me, the state will be running there, closing them down. Everything's regulated to a certain extent. As far as my glasses again. He was saying about, Steve was talking about stacking of vehicles. I think what he was referring to was there should be two stacking of cars while one is pumping, there's another person behind him. Well, the intention of the owner, I think that's where his good intention was to double the pumps, back to back, and in order to accommodate people to come in and out quicker. So you lessen that congestion or vehicles staying there for too long and leaving the site. So that would have helped, but the circulation that Mario's bringing up is also something that we should comply with, that I understand. There's no code that says that there has to be stacking spaces, unless you guys could show me that on the gas pumps. As far as the stacking spaces for the carryout, I mentioned, and I can show to you,
15 seconds.
I fit 14 parking spaces. With that said, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward and make a comment? I'm sorry, ma'am, just one per person.
No, miss.
No, ma'am, you're only allowed to come up once.
Oh, so it'll only take a second. I just thought the community knows it.
Okay, no, please hold it down. All right, do we have any written communications about this?
We have many.
Many?
So
Okay.
please bear with me here. To begin, Paula Barker, again from Crowder, she writes, I'm sending this in regards to the public hearing to be held on April 10th, 2025. As to the second hearing of the gas station and drive-through restaurant, I am also against this, as I feel this corner is already busy enough, and I live on the next street. I'm concerned with the added noise of garbage trucks emptying early morning dumpsters, delivery trucks, and gas tankers. This, along with the smell of gasoline. The early and late hours of this business will be disruptive to a quiet neighborhood. I'm also afraid that my street will become busier with traffic trying to get onto Ford Road and taking a shortcut down my street. This already happens too often, and they do this at a fast speed to avoid the light. As I have already stated, I have grandchildren living with me that I want to keep safe along with the others on the block. Next comes from Sean. He writes, "It's Sean from 32271 Ford Road, Garden City. We don't want another gas station and Garden City. We have enough gas station and it's really gonna hurt my business. Thank you, we need to stop it." Next is from Sherry Childs on Hennepin. This is concerning the gas station proposal at Ford Road and Merriman. We do not need another gas station, nor do we want it. That corner is congested bad enough as it is, and yes, I am a resident of Garden City. Please do not allow this. Next, subject is just gas station build from an unknown. Please do not build another gas station in front of the existing one in Garden City, Michigan. Our community already has enough gas stations to meet our needs, and adding another one right across the street is unnecessary and excessive. It would not only create more traffic and safety concerns, but also hurt the local environment and potentially harm small businesses that have been serving our area for years. Instead of repeating what we already have, let's focus on bringing in something new and beneficial that our community actually needs. Please reconsider this decision for the sake of our neighborhoods and our future. Next, from Dave Jenkins. Attention Planning Board, this is Dave Jenkins. I heard there was another gas station going up next to my family's gas station in Garden City, and I truly believe that's a wrong thing to do, being after that station being there for the many years. I don't agree with it whatsoever. He did provide an address that is not in Garden City, however, states 37627 Dorchester Drive, Garden City. Again, that's not Garden City, Michigan, but. Next, we have Michael Shamas. Says, "Dear members of the Planning Commission, I am running to express my strong opposition to the proposed addition of another gas station in our community. As a resident of Garden City, I am deeply concerned about the negative impacts this development will have on our area. Firstly, the introduction of another gas station will exacerbate the already significant traffic congestion in the vicinity. The increased vehicular movement associated with a new gas station will lead to longer wait times, higher risks of accidents, and overall frustration for commuters. Our roads are not equipped to handle the additional traffic load, and this will only worsen the current situation. Moreover, the presence of numerous gas stations in Garden City has already saturated the market. Adding another gas station will create unnecessary competition among existing businesses, potentially leading to financial instability and closures. This is not only detrimental to the business owners, but also to the employees who rely on these jobs for their livelihoods. Additionally, the environmental implications of constructing and operating another gas station cannot be overlooked. Gas stations contribute to pollution through fuel spills, emissions, and increased carbon footprint. Our community should be moving towards sustainable and eco-friendly initiatives rather than expanding fossil fuel infrastructure. The environmental degradation associated with another gas station is a step backwards in our efforts to protect and preserve our local environment. In conclusion, I urge the Planning Commission to reconsider the approval of this new gas station. The adverse effects on traffic, local businesses, and the environment far outweigh any potential benefits. I hope that you will take these concerns into serious consideration and prioritize the well-being of our community. Thank you for this matter." Almost wrapped up here. The next one is from Dion Westfall. "Dear members of the City Planning Commission, I am writing to express my deep concern regarding the proposed construction of a gas station approximately 1/4 mile from my business. I am the mobile at 32221 Ford Road, located as a local business owner who has proudly served this community for 15 years. I strongly believe that this development poses a direct threat to the viability of my business and could ultimately force me to close my doors. My business relies heavily on local traffic and loyal customers who have chosen to support a neighborhood establishment rather than larger corporate-run stations. The introduction of a new gas station so close to my location, likely operated by a large chain, will not only saturate the market, but will also shift customer traffic away from my store. This kind of competition is not just difficult, it's potentially devastating, particularly at a time when small businesses are already working hard to recover from the challenges of recent years. In addition to the economic impact, the presence of another gas station within such a short distance raises concerns about traffic congestion, environmental implications, and a redundancy in services that do not seem in the best interest of the community as a whole. I respectfully ask that the City Planning Commission reconsider or at least more thoroughly evaluate the long-term implications of this proposed gas station, not just for my business, but for the overall economic health and balance of the neighborhood. I am more than willing to meet or speak further to discuss this matter and provide any additional information that may help illustrate the significance of this issue from a local business owner's perspective. Thank you for your time and consideration. Finally, we received, I believe there's five. Five copy and pasted emails, all from different email accounts, however saying the same thing. They said, and I quote, "We don't want no gas station in Ford Road and Merriman. We have enough gas station. Please stop this." Again, that's 5 different email accounts, but all the same message. That concludes the communications.
Thank you. Okay. At 8:30, we'll close the public hearing and move to discussion from the commission.
A couple things.
Yes.
I understand it's zoned to put a gas station here. My concerns are, none of the approaches meet our current ordinance. I think it's 31 feet, we get them all at 30.
Correct, in terms of the width, yes.
Correct, so none of the approaches meet the ordinance. The setbacks don't meet our current ordinances. An average tanker that does fuel is between 40 and 53 feet.
72. 72 feet, 8.5 feet wide, 13.5 feet tall, average weight 80+ thousand pounds.
Even so, between 40 and 52 feet, if they put the tanker to fill that on an angle, they could possibly block 2 approaches at the same time. And outside of that, we haven't even got to the lighting plan if it goes past this. How is that going to affect with not having a 40-foot setback to the neighbor with the lighting? With as close it is, it could be right in their backyard. Even with, depending where they put it, even with the 6-foot high fence, I think that's going to be an issue. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I think it would require a lot smaller building and redesign. There's too many current conflictions with ordinances we have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a comment?
I got a question to the architect. Could you help me with the distance? Let's see, that would be the south end of the driveway that's closest to Ford Road. What is the distance from that south end to Ford Road there?
23 feet.
So the closest distance from the approach to the intersection or to Ford Road?
To Ford Road.
That goes to the center of the island.
From the property line to the approach is 23 feet.
Okay. I see that. That gets us to the edge of Ford Road there?
No, from the property line to the edge of Ford Road, there's not a dimension here, but it looks like another 30 feet. So between the approach and the actual intersection, you're talking about 53 feet.
Okay. And looking at the distance from the edge of Merriman over to the driveway on Ford Road, what is the nearest distance there?
To the approach of Ford Road?
Yeah.
We're allowed, every site is allowed an approach on both sides of the road, one on Merriman.
I like your
Ford
setup a lot on Henry Ruff. Of course, it's got a different shape to it, but your configuration allows for very easy ingress and
Well, this one
ingress
is a lot,
and
we have a lot more space over here. We have a lot more length to the property. I mean, this one is going to be so much more safer than the one on Henry Ruff. But we're 50 from the property line to the edge, from the property line of Merriman, heading westward to the approach, beginning of the approach on Ford Road. You have from the property line to there 51 feet and 11 inches. So almost 52 feet. And then for the right-of-way, you have probably an extra 20 feet. So you're talking about 70 feet, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
So that's normal. I mean, it's more than normal. So I not under, you know, those kind, yeah. I don't have no more. Stuttering, so.
And I was wondering where the dumpster enclosure, with the average garbage truck, if they're going to be able to navigate these turns.
I mean, as far as the approaches, I mean.
If they don't come in from Ford Road, I'm wondering if they'd be able to make that right-hand turn with the angled parking spaces being there.
Yeah, if there's cars parked there, that's going to
If
be
there's
tough.
cars parked there, I don't see how he could possibly do that in
And one aspect of
20 feet.
Sorry to interrupt, Mike, but
Go ahead.
one aspect of the dump trucks is that typically the drivers go in, they have the arms, they grab the dumpster, but then they back up, and then they unload it into their truck, and then they
Sure,
go
they have to
forward.
get it
and
out
they-
of the
Yeah, to get it out
enclosure.
of the enclosure. So you typically have a distance that's equal to the truck length plus, 6 foot in front of it for the arms. So the issue here might be the proximity to the gas station canopy. By the time a truck, even if a truck can turn to get into and grab the dumpster, by the time they back up,
It's going to be real close to
it's
the
gonna be really
canopy,
close to
you know.
that dumpster, that gas station
And
canopy.
you can't back up straight there very well.
No.
Because you'd be hitting the cars at the pump.
And once again, to the credit to the architect, that I'm sure they went over a lot of different configurations.
Sure.
It's a tough site.
This is a challenge.
So that's the only reason why I thought it was important to have this here tonight, to get public opinion as well, to see what their concerns are, and also to get your experience and your concerns, so that way they can have an opportunity to revise it. Because typically what we do is have the planning commission look at the set that you've had, and then have you look at my comments, look at their comments, and then together take them, so you can come up with a solution. Because it's going to be a tough solution if it was to move forward, so.
I have some issues with the whole thing myself. After the comments here tonight and all of the written comments, it kind of makes me wonder if we really need the proposed use. That's one thing. Then the other big issue to me is the fact that we're not meeting the 40-foot setback on the west property line
R1.
there. And there's no way with this configuration, I think that can be done. This has to be completely changed if that's going to happen. So if we're going to go ahead with this, I think we should probably table it and give them an opportunity to reconfigure this so it will meet our requirements and take care of some of the other issues that were pointed out in your review. How does everybody feel about that?
I just, if I could,
Before we
One at a
go
time.
to, go ahead.
well, I just agree with you on the setback being problematic. I mean, this probably goes without saying, but this is the property line, the west wall, that's on the property line. Correct. Yeah, that is the property line on the, so I agree with you on this.
We're almost 30 feet short of meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just the other question I had, the design of this drive-through, you're trapped once you get into it.
Yeah, there's only one lane.
I mean, you don't see that as being a problem for people who, you're going to have a lot of cars that are trapped in this ring.
You get one car up by
One car who breaks down.
by the window that breaks down here, and everybody behind them is trapped.
Yeah. Oh, so, I mean, you don't have to respond to that, but this design does concern me for many reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that, so I wanted to add, I'm sorry. I wanted to add a approach point to, I didn't think it was nice to have an approach by residential street in a state.
Okay.
But yeah, there should be a state.
Well, we don't generally allow businesses to dump onto side streets like that, so we probably wouldn't want an approach going out to Crowder. Yes, Mike.
When we talked about the setback there, yeah, there's not enough distance there. We talked about the potential for a higher wall. In some cities, that may be allowed. I don't think it is in Garden City. I think the police limit the height of any wall in the city to 6 foot for safety reasons, thinking that an officer in an emergency could stand on his tiptoes or something and look over the wall without having to scale it to see what's, so I'm not sure if that's a possibility.
I don't think we have an ordinance limiting it.
I thought it was 6 feet.
We have a minimum of 6 feet, as far as I know.
Oh, I thought it was a maximum. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but also I checked with SEMCOG, with the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, and the busiest intersection on M153, which starts at Wyoming and goes to US 23, is Middlebelt currently. And the second busiest intersection is Merriman. And I'm really wondering if MDOT and/or Wayne County would really want these approaches so close to that.
They're very close to the corner.
We've been asked over the last several years, probably the last, 4, 5, 6 years, to start to look at ways to limit ingress and egress approaches onto Ford Road. We've been able to do that in a few instances where there were other opportunities that aren't necessarily available here, but I'm thinking they might have a real hard problem with this configuration. I know why you did it. I can see looking at your drawings, which are very detailed. I like them. But I'm just wondering, with the fuel truck coming in from Ford or coming in from Merriman, it just seems like he's going to block off both of those ingress-egress points right there. 72 is the minimum length of most fuel trucks, and they say it can exceed 80 depending if it has a sleeper box or whatnot in conjunction with the fuel truck. So I'm looking at that distance. There's not enough space for him to deliver his load of fuel and not block off these entrances. And I'm thinking that in conjunction with MDOT and/or Wayne County, I'm thinking they're not going to want to see this that close. I'm not sure what you can do different, but I'm just looking at the things that I think will be possible concerns.
Would you be okay if we closed that one entrance on Merriman, closer to the intersection? Would you feel the same way that you can't come, the fuel truck can come off Ford Road, circle around the entrance where the pumps are, and then have enough room for him to unload, and then keep going down that lane, and then exit from the other approach, north on Merriman?
The concern, I hear what you're saying, yeah. The concern is when he's dropping off his fuel, though, you go from 3 ingress and egress points to 1. And I don't know how often fuel needs to be delivered, what the average consumption or any of that is, but it just seems like we have a drive-up restaurant, we have a small store, and then we have a lot of gas pumps. It just seems like an awful lot in this location. I think all of those 3 things could coexist, but maybe not in the quantity that they currently are.
I'm just curious, all of the gas stations that are a lot smaller than, we have 29,000 square feet. The sites that are down the road on every direction, on average, are about 16,000 square feet land. So, and if Mario telling us that, and how are they accommodating all this? And you're telling me 29,000 square foot of land is not going to accommodate all this?
Well, you got me wondering, and I'm going to be checking some of those out in the very near future to see how they move around in that. Personally, I usually fill up at Costco or your gas station at Ford and Henry Ruff because I live around the corner. And it's very easy to get in and very easy to get out, and it doesn't matter what time of day it is. It doesn't matter how much traffic there is. I love the one on Henry Ruff and Ford. It's just very accessible from a lot of different angles, whether you're coming down Ford or coming up or going down Henry Ruff. And I'm just trying to picture this one in that same light, and I can't picture it.
You know, the pumps are not facing the building, but they're facing Merriman in a sense. But they're, you know, this configuration is called like a dive-in pump. We couldn't provide the dive-in pump because the width of the lot wasn't as much facing the building.
Okay.
Because we didn't have that width. So we have to face it to Merriman, but it's the same perception. You know, you're gonna just, it's gonna be a lot more easier. You're gonna dive into your position. You fill your pump, and you want to buy something. It's a little walk to the store, and then you circle out. Well, if you came in from Ford Road, you pump your gas, pick up your local drive, and then you leave off of Merriman, or you just circle back and leave off of Ford Road. But the lanes that are in between, you know, if we minimize dive-in pumps with one island instead of 2 islands, that'll give us a little wider of an aisleway, because the aisleway between the diagonal parking spaces to the pumps is about 20 feet, which I think in Garden City we're meeting that goal. But and like we were talking on the garbage truck, they can back up, and they do have enough room for them to go up and then leave. Because it takes 5 minutes for them to really come in and out, and they usually do it early in the morning in most cases. But nonetheless, if we eliminate one row of those pump items, I think we will release some of that congestion that is on the aisleway parallel to Merriman and the aisleway parallel on the other side of the pumps. It'll give us a lot more breathing room for the cars to circulate back and forth in just the 20 feet. It'll probably give us maybe 24 feet on both sides. And those items are almost 8 feet wide.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think the biggest problem is the pumps. The biggest problem you're gonna face is you're 28 feet short on egress on the west side of the building.
Yeah, your setback.
Your setback, you're so far off. You're not asking for 10 feet, you're asking for 28 feet. I think that is going to be one of your biggest hurdles.
And we can't really ignore the ordinance because you're not meeting it, basically. I think what we should do is table the application and allow them to come back with the configuration that will meet all of these concerns before we go any farther.
You making a motion to that effect?
I can't.
Are you looking
Second
for, just to be clear, are you looking for a motion on special land use and site plan both, or?
Well, I think it's appropriate. I don't think we should look at a site plan for something we are asking to be changed.
I agree.
I would say, so the motion is just on the special land use?
No, and the site
So
plan.
both, tabling them both?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes
I
sense.
don't think one can exist without the other, and we have questions on both, so.
Yep.
yeah.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion regarding the request for special land use and site plan approval to construct a gas station and convenience store building with a drive-through restaurant at 31406 Ford Road in the C3 General Business Zoning District, with a motion to table both proposals.
I'll second.
Motion made and supported. Any discussion? Take the roll, please.
Commissioner King?
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Well, so you can come back and talk with Mr. Ortega and see if we can resolve some of these issues.
We would like some of your input also, and if something's not going to work over there, that's something that we should be directed to the owners. But we would like the commissioners to have something along with Mario, so if you come back the next time with a design that you will, consider, then we don't want to just stand here, just wasting more time, and you probably don't.
No, we don't like wasting time either. So if you don't think you can do it, then let us know.
I think the biggest thing is you need to comply with as many ordinances as you can.
You have to comply with all the ordinances, not just a few.
But we've adjusted setbacks for other people, not at 28 feet.
We can't adjust that setback. That's 40 feet. We can't adjust that. We don't change the ordinances.
So it don't go in front of zoning and they can't?
They can do it in front of the ZBA, but we can't do that.
It makes it especially problematic because there's a drive-through there.
All I'm saying is we have adjusted, maybe not us, zoning, DBA, whoever, has adjusted some setbacks.
So just to let you know, in terms of a couple of things that were said tonight. So with regards to this, it is a C3 district. Gas stations are permitted in the district. Compliance with the special land use standards. Now, as mentioned, there are definitely, when it comes to site plan, if the site complies with every ordinance requirement, then yes, technically the planning commission has to approve it. However, as a special land use, the special land use gives the planning commission some ability to interpret the ordinance for those specific approval criteria. So like the specific approval criteria listed, compatibility with adjacent uses, compatibility with the master plan, the need for the use. Those are all things that the planning commission, it's not a quantitative thing that they must be met. They can make a determination of whether qualitatively the proposal meets that standard. So it's up to you and your interpretation of that. When it comes to a variance, technically any person could ask to apply for a variance. However, the issue will be the first thing, one of the criteria that the ZBA looks at is whether the issue is self-created. Given the fact that no improvements have been done on the site, a requirement to modify that standard, it'd be tough to try and meet. I'm not saying it hasn't been done, but it's something that it'd be tough to come up with. But generally speaking, when it's new construction, you have to come up with a very substantive reason based on the specific criteria listed in the ordinance that the ZBA looks at to determine whether a variance could be granted. But it's a possibility. One thing I will say is that the ZBA did grant one for the Hollywood Sound development project, It was a 40-foot setback on the north property line. They granted it for 30 feet. But the key aspect of that was that there was no openings along that rear wall, and then it's completely landscaped, that 30 feet, and that it was enhanced with extra landscaping. So those are things that could be considered, but I get the feeling, given the size of the site and the size of this, that they might need to do, the applicant might be looking to utilize that 40 feet behind the building or on that side of the site. But it all depends. Once again, it's a tough site to design, and it's something that just needs to be looked at.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Our next item under other business is Housing Readiness Grant Master Plan Amendment. Mr. Ortega, you have something?
Well, basically, I just want to provide an update. We have been working on the next phases of the actual master plan document that will eventually be before you. We're intending to have a first draft of it in front of you potentially next month. Because I know that the Planning Commission is concerned about moving along on that issue. And one of the things that we'll be addressing, I wanted to run through an exercise with you this evening. I don't know if you feel the need. I didn't bring the right maps. But basically, we've talked about the types of uses, the types of housing alternatives that could be done in the city. The next step that we're looking at right now is where in the city various additional housing types could be created. So we're looking at areas of that are long-term vacant properties. We're looking at areas of some schools that might be going vacant. We're looking at different locations where alternative housing could be located, such as townhouses or senior housing or something to that effect. So we might be asking you to next time to go through an exercise of looking at the zoning map, looking at the master plan, where could we see zoning districts. So it'd be similar to how we talked about and we eventually implemented the mixed-use overlay. You know, the master plan showed the mixed-use overlay on Ford, on Middle Belt, on north and south of Ford, and on the east side of Ford. So we'd be looking at to you for some of your initial input as to where that is, or we might provide you with a draft of a map, and then you provide your input on whether you feel those locations are appropriate. So that's where we are right now. We're moving forward quickly, and then like I said, we're hopeful to get that in front of you very soon.
Okay. Next item, schedule of public hearing to consider a PUD rezoning for mixed-use building at 29-317, 29-299, and 29-217. This is, if I'm not mistaken, this encompasses the old Orange Jeweler building all the way down to the old theater building.
That is correct.
And everything in between?
That is correct. So
because there's a couple other addresses in there that weren't included in this.
That is correct. So the property addresses in front of you are the actual property addresses. There are some unit addresses on the buildings, because some of those buildings are multi-tenant buildings. But basically, we're talking about the old Oren properties. So the southeast corner of Ford and Middle Belt.
Yeah.
The Oren building, Oren Jewelers building, the building next to that, the multi-tenant building that basically, I believe the last viable use in there was the Gyro store.
Hair salon.
Hair salon, the Gyros. And then
Coney Island.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Coney Island. And then also the Mazzoni building, the entirety of the Mazzoni building, that site. So all the way over to the property line with the Allstate building. Okay. And then it incorporates from Ford Road down to Pardo. So that whole block with the parking lot and everything. So they're proposing PUD. They're looking at the possibility of constructing a brand new 4-story building.
That would be mixed use?
Yes.
With commercial on the first floor and residential above? Or?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that sounds promising. We will be getting a site plan at
Yes.
time. Be nice to get the site plan a little before the usual time,
Okay.
if we could. Okay, well, we need to set a public hearing for that. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing regarding the consideration of a PUD rezoning for mixed-use building at 29317, 29299, and 29217 Ford Road.
Motion's made and supported. Any questions or comments on the motion? Take the roll, please.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg?
Aye.
Chairperson May?
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
Okay. Mr. Ortega, you have anything else for us?
So I actually do, if you bear with me for a second, because we had some interesting things happen always in the building department, it seems. Things that come up you wouldn't think you're going to have to deal with, and then sometimes you have to. I had some inquiries from some residents concerned and wanting to basically pave their entire rear yard. So right now, there's nothing in the zoning ordinance with regards to a limit on hard surface in the ordinance. There's technically no requirement even, because I've dealt with this on a different site where someone wanted to utilize their front yard for planting crops. Not just, tomato plants, but crops, because they were going to utilize farming techniques to grow. I mean, it wouldn't be a large amount of land, but it would, well, given the amount of, given the size of some lots and the size of some front yards, it could be interesting. We were able to utilize some other ordinances in that instance, along with the Ordinance Enforcement Department, to ensure that things like garbage bags weren't utilized as canvas for a fallow field in the front yard of this house. So with that in mind, and knowing that there are no standards currently, I was wondering about, because to back up for a second, we've been talking about residential parking. I know I owe you some graphics on residential parking in my graphics department. I wanted to refine those graphics, so that's one aspect of a zoning amendment. I was wondering about, so this issue could be, the issue I just brought up with the lot coverage could be done two ways. One, we could make a requirement regarding the specific, that landscaping and a seed lawn is required, and come up with some percentage of the lot that has to at least remain that. Or we could it could open up into the broader issue of lot coverage in general, and including hard surface with lot coverage. Right now, a residential lot can have 30% coverage with buildings. So garage, home, sheds, and decks. So those kind of things count towards the 30% lot coverage maximum. And then technically,
A paved slab doesn't count as a deck.
right now, a paved slab doesn't count as that. That's a patio. It's not even the same permit. It's a flat work permit. It's not a building permit. So technically, anybody could come in and pave over their entire yard.
They want to make a parking lot, or?
They, I don't want to get into too much specs of it, but they basically, the maintenance of that area, either because of sun or because it doesn't grow, and so they're trying to find some solution, and their dogs are causing problems on that portion of the lot too, so they just want to pave over the whole thing.
Turf will be cheap.
Well, that's another aspect of it too. Like some of them were saying that in terms of that, what about some of the initial solutions were AstroTurf outside.
Well, if we're going to consider that, then we have to consider what Wayne County says about non-permeable surfaces. Because if we're requiring it for businesses, and somebody actually has the money to pave their whole lot, then they may have to start looking at swales or retention ponds or...
Yeah.
you know?
Might be a way to approach it.
That is right now how I'm approaching it with them, saying that if we receive a flat work permit, where there's an extensive amount of coverage, normally the way it works is whenever you have a flat surface, a patio, or a concrete slab, number one, we do have it on the ordinance books right now. You can't create any kind of improvement that's going to flood your neighbor.
Okay.
So, but normally when it comes to flat work, then people have to pitch their patio in such a way that it goes towards their lawn area. Well, if there's no lawn area, where are they going to pitch it to? So the issue then becomes, in theory, what it would be is we would make them go to the city engineer and have a requirement to make sure that they come up with some other solution, whether it's a connection to existing stormwater or they provide some type of underground storage detention.
Have to have drains in it.
Have it have drains in it and that sort of thing. So that is currently the approach to this kind of request. But the applicant is undeterred with regards to that request.
I guess
Seems like the 30% rule covers this.
Well, that's the issue, Mike.
27,000 residents, 11,000 houses. How often do you see this?
That is correct.
Something that we really need to create another ordinance to address this?
Well, that's why I'm saying that there's different options. One could be a very simple option where we just choose a percentage of a minimum lot area that has to be grass, and that's it. One could be, we could open it up into looking at the broader issue, as Mike mentioned, about lot coverage, because we talked about it a little when we talked about residential parking, but I kind of strayed away from it. The idea of right now, hard surfaces, driveways, patios, don't count towards lot coverage. As a result, that's why sometimes you have a lot of flooding, because there's just sheet flow off of a lot of the lots that just flood into the street, and then it floods the entire city. So it becomes an issue and floods basements. So, yes.
Could we just consider like non-permeable surfaces or something? Like let people do whatever they want.
Right.
But you can't cover your yard more than 50% of a non-permeable.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then let people.
That would be the simplest and most easiest solution, and give people a lot of options.
So I guess my question, if we're going to increase, let's say it's 50%. Right now, we're at 30% for buildings. Are people going to interpret it as they could increase their building size to 50% because it's a non-permeable surface? So that
paved.
We can craft
the same thing.
We can craft the language specifically to say that there's a lot coverage requirement for, the lot coverage requirement only addresses buildings and structures. And then we can have something that says a minimum of the lot area shall be living material that allows for, or other permeable surfaces that allow for infill of drainage. And so in theory, we could even, if we wanted to, add a language that says if they create some kind of underground detention that does take that water and allow it to infill, technically it allows for infill.
I guess my question is, out of all the residents we have, 27,000, 11,000 homes, do we have one person asking to do this? I mean, are we really going to make an ordinance over one issue?
I agree.
Well, yeah,
Let's stick to the 30% rule, and if they come to you again, suggest they go to Wayne County and have it run past Wayne County and see what Wayne County says.
But that's why, but Kelly, that's why I brought it up, like whether we want to have that or not. Personally, I think it could be a simple solution that would just be another thing that I could hang my hat on that could easily tell people what they want. But once again, it doesn't have to be if you don't want it, but it's just.
That would be something for the building department to easily address with that you can't flood out your neighbors.
Well, it is.
Concrete the whole backyard, obviously the water, if it's not going into the storm drain, is going to flood out the neighbors.
So there have been multiple times in the past several years in which construction, in which just normal grading on adjacent lots, where that neighbor floods out the other neighbor, and the city has tried to develop a policy where we address that. We have to We have to develop. We involve DPW. We involve the ordinance enforcement. We involve the police chief. We involve the city engineer, and they all had to get together to try and figure out.
Because my neighbor's been flooding me for a long time, and the city came out once,
right, and
nothing was done.
Kind of, that's what happens sometimes too.
And it's still flooding.
So that, unfortunately, sometimes that's what happens in the past too, because if all of these different departments don't have an ordinance they can officially hang their hat on and say this is what the ordinance is, they deal with it on a case-by-case basis, and then sometimes nothing gets done.
But I think the problem is too, Fred, where yours, I'm sure they're flooding you, with a permeable surface, because they just raised the elevation of their backyard or whatever, to where the water would go to the lowest spot.
Right.
So it's like the permeable surface or the hard surface wouldn't even address that.
Well, but that's the key.
That has nothing to do with this situation.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, but whether it's permeable or not, if somebody raises their yard a foot over their neighbor.
What the city's,
Well, that's the issue, though, is like, what happens is the ordinance, the way it's written right now, and what we would hang their hat on, and what I would tell this person, anybody that's trying to pave their surface, is you're not allowed to flood your neighbor. You have to give us a plan that's going to prevent that. But that's even if it's just grading. Some of these instances where this occurred was just landscape grading. Somebody wanted a retaining wall, but then it ended up flooding their neighbor, and then what happened is nothing, because we were trying to address it, and then nothing came it. Officially, what's supposed to happen is whenever anybody moves 200 square feet, 200 square feet of soil, they technically are supposed to submit a grading plan that shows how they do exactly, how they do the swales on adjacent to their, on the side lots, so that they put a swale basically on their side lot, so that way the water collects on their property and not flood their neighbor. But in order to do that effectively, you basically have to be an engineer to calculate the volume of water at a 100-year storm event, and 2 consecutive 100-year storm events, in terms of the permeability of the soils, in order to see the volume, to know what the slope is, to collect the water. And I can't do that.
I just think as an ordinance, it would almost, for us to change it or amend it, it would be almost impossible. The average homeowner, if they're flooding out, they're gonna bring in 20 yards of topsoil, they're gonna seed it, and you're not gonna know about it till it's too late, and it's brought to you 6-8 months later. And then how are you gonna prove, or how are we gonna prove that they changed the elevation of their yard to create this?
Well, in other instances where it's occurred, there has been some ability to find out whether other neighbors, knowing when trucks come in and asking the neighbor and finding solutions. But once again, there's nothing on the books that anybody can hang their hat on that they can officially deal with it. And I do agree that it could get very murky. It could get very long and extended if we involved this as a lot coverage issue. I do think there's a simpler solution, just a simple lot percentage. It would be a couple lines that could be changed. But I wanted to bring it to your attention to see if it's something that you'd want me to present that as a simple solution, and see if that's even just to look at, to see if it's something you want to consider.
I just think with that, we'd have to be really careful on the smaller lots in Garden City.
Right. No, absolutely.
9-foot driveway, 24-foot garage in the back.
Right.
And they gotta have a permeable surface that's required. They might not even be able to build a garage then. You know what I'm saying?
the thing is, the smaller lots are going to have less yard to work with, so they're gonna suffer, where somebody with a big lot can do a lot more.
And what we can do is, because I've been thinking about this a lot with regards to ordinances and this issue, and other issues. Maybe they need to be different standards. Maybe there needs to be a different zoning district for smaller lots versus larger lots. And maybe there needs to be different standards for them to allow for the smaller lots to not have to meet requirements that larger lots could easily accommodate. But anyway, so like I said, that's just one issue I wanted to bring up in terms, and if you permit me, I can bring very simple language, just keeping it simple and clean, to at least for you to react to see if it's even something to consider.
We can take a look at it.
Okay. And then the other thing that came in, one other site that came in today that was looking at coming back, is the old Knights of Columbus site. They're in the mixed-use overlay. They want to do a mixed-use building there as well. One thing I noticed when we created the mixed-use overlay is we didn't include some standards, such as how high they can go. And so it could be
the normal.
Right now it'd be normal at 2.5 stories, and 2.5 stories and 35 feet. So I wasn't sure if it's something you'd want to consider, allowing that to be everybody's asking for 3 stories basically. So I wasn't sure if that's something, in addition to not just the height, but there are some other missing standards that I think we need to put in there, so that way we might have missed. So I was wondering if it would be appropriate to bring you some modifications to the mixed-use standards, and then you can say which ones.
We only have certain areas that are mixed use.
Right.
And they're commercial. So
and it would be
what we're doing is we're just elevating from an old restriction, and liberalizing it a little bit to allow for greater height.
Exactly. And since you were talking about it after the open house, how, we'd like to look at changing the ordinance to allow for these taller buildings. This would be a simple way to do very modest modification in an area that we already were thinking about having residential, commercial on the ground floor and 2 stories of residential above. It's just basically a lot of the builders are telling me with a 2.5 story requirement, putting a pitched roof on that half story, they don't get enough living space underneath it. I've tried to compromise with them, trying to tell them about mansard roofs, something like that, or to use a lot more dormers, but they're really thinking having that 3rd floor might be an issue. And then I can't remember off the top of my head, but there are some other standards in the mixed-use district I'd like to at least present to you, and once again, you can react, and if you think it's inappropriate, we just won't do them. But at the next meeting, I just bring that text so you can consider it.
I'd like to see that change because it would open up a lot more opportunities. If somebody can put 1 retail on the 1st floor and put 2 residential above it, that sounds a whole lot more lucrative than 1 and 1 because we've already been told that they can't make money like that.
Yeah.
When they turned down the thing over here on Merriman, they walked away. They said, hell with it, we can't make money at 2.5 stories because nobody wants to live half underground anymore. So they said they couldn't do it and they walked away.
And that's really what it is like a lot of people, the previous
You don't
solution
see any
was
new
half
homes
story.
like that.
Nobody wants to do garden units anymore.
They put a lot of them in Westland, but not anymore.
So if you permit me, I can bring that very simple language. And once again, it's just something for you to react to. And if you like it, we can move forward. If you don't, then we don't do it.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I have.
Mike, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
I'm good tonight.
Kelly?
Good.
Jake?
9:30, we're trying to set a record here.
We're pushing
Now,
it.
Jake doesn't care, he's on
I just feel like
OT.
it's more historic. Back in the day, Mike, we used to
Laughing
do
all the
some
way to
late
the
ones.
bank.
I'm just filling it.
Matt took the convenient
Matt
vacation.
heard about
didn't
all the letters you had to read tonight, so.
Matt took a very convenient vacation. Thank you, Mario.
Okay. Next regular meeting will be Thursday, May 8th, 2025. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
We may still be on.